Now we know Loki he switches it up in different realities.
Yeah, and in the comic book, there's young Loki, there's kid Loki, there's
Right.
there's female Loki, who comes after, I think, like Ragnarok or something like that. He switches into this female version of himself for a while, and
is there a black Loki?
it's a lot of Lokis, man.
Blackie?
Ooh. What's up?
What's up, dude? How you doing?
I'm good. I'm very good.
Man.
I'm still, really basking in the amazingness of last episode.
It was amazing.
Where we had Pharoah Monch on, and we talked about his album with 13, A Magnificent Day for an Exorcism.
Oh, yeah.
Check out that episode if you haven't seen it. But I am LR Blitzkrieg,
I am the marksman.
and this is ISO Boom. Here we talk about all the nerd shit that's fit to talk about. And today we are starting our new series, Loki.
I've been waiting for this for a while, bro.
Yeah.
We have.
We started on IG Live with WandaVision. And then we started the actual ISO Boom YouTube show with Captain Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're here on our third Marvel show, Loki, and it's great. We got a lot to get into.
This is big, man. This is big. I'm definitely proud of ISO Boom.
Guys, make sure you subscribe, hit the notifications, like the show, comment on the show. It's the only way that we can continue to do what we do. Check out our merch. We have a couple of new ISO Boom t-shirts, and there'll be way more to come. Links will be in the bio, but right now, let's get into it.
We're going to run through the show, and after every episode, you tune into this show to make sure you understand what's happening, right? Yeah. We're going to run through it.
Okay.
Right? The brilliance of this show is that they start with Avengers Endgame.
Yeah.
Right? So we're all on the same page. Mm-hmm. We all know what happened with the Tesseract. We don't have to go through that. We know what happened.
Well, are we starting with Endgame? Or kind of, right? We're starting with Endgame, but we're also starting with the first Avengers movie at the same time, it feels like.
Correct.
Because it all loops back around.
It's very true.
Yeah.
When I say Endgame, they actually took the scene from Endgame, but we're actually dealing with the 2012 Loki.
Yeah.
Which is very important. It's very important that you understand what this particular Loki went through and has gone through up until this point. But he lands in the desert, Iron Man style, and pretty instantly, he talks to some people, but the TVA pops up pretty instantly. The time variants, like they're there, they're cops, they're there to make sure that nothing goes wrong. And pretty much my homegirl, Wunmi Mosaku, who plays Hunter B-15.
Right, from Lovecraft.
Yeah, B-15 is actually one of my favorite buses in Crown Heights. So shouts to Crown Heights.
Shouts to the B-15 bus.
But yeah, she hops out and she says it's a standard sequence violation. Mm-hmm. So as we're kind of watching it, we're kind of learning what the rules are, right? They got these staffs, and pretty much their goal is to reset the timeline. She whacks my man Loki, who's resisting, of course,
with a time stick.
And of course, it was shot beautifully. Where you think everything is moving still.
Yeah.
But it's just Loki. So we kind of learn about their power.
Slowed him down, and he's feeling the pain of everything that's happening in the slowed down time.
In 1/16.
And his face is like, it's crazy.
Yeah, these guys are pretty powerful. So they put down this little lantern. It turns purple, and then that resets the timeline. We're learning how this works.
Pretty much like erases that they were even there.
That they were there.
Yeah.
Which should raise some questions.
Yeah.
So we go back to the TVA, right? We realize that they have this little device. So every time Loki runs away, this little time twister device keeps him back. So we're learning about the little tools and the little mechanisms.
It's a collar on his neck that reminded me of like a mutant power dampener or inhibitor,
Very much.
Whatever that was called. But yeah, that keeps everybody in check while they're in the TVA, basically.
Right. And just general intake. They treat the TVA just like a regular precinct or DMV or some
bureaucratic office.
Definitely, he goes down some elevators where pretty much his clothes taken off, his words are validated. Every single word he's ever uttered, he had to sign off on the words.
Right.
He went to another elevator where they pretty much wanted to confirm if he's organic.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a soul? And pretty much he was like, well, am I not a robot? Like, how would I know? So he's over here questioning himself. They measured his temporal aura with a little card.
Right, it came out kind of like a Polaroid, right?
Yeah.
Like they took a picture of it and then they waited kind of for it to develop.
Yeah.
Interesting thing, right? Just within the TVA is how the set of it is set up where it looks like very old time. It looks very 70s-ish.
Mm-hmm.
The TV that was up looked like a tube TV. The videos that played on the screen were very old school cartoonish and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was interesting, and in watching it, we were like, this reminds me of another show that I really liked within the Marvel universe, Legion.
Oh wow, okay.
Right, because Legion was basically set whether it kind of in the future, but everything had this weird 60, 70-ish tint to it. Yeah. All of the gadgets, the stuff on the walls, the clothing even. Yeah. It's always interesting when they take something that's supposed to feel very super modern but make it look like it's jarring, but it's really cool.
It's very cool.
When it's done right, it works. And I even went and looked up to see if the people who were doing this show were people that worked on that show, because it reminded me of it so much, but it wasn't. It's just, coincidence.
Yeah, they did a lot to make the details of the TVA, the posters.
You never got into Legion?
Never. This is another show that has kind of escaped me.
Legion was a great show that came on FX. I'm sure you can catch the reruns of it, but I had a lot of fun watching that, more so than any other of the X-Men shows. I know we had the one that Polaris was the
Gifted. I followed that show.
Really?
I followed Gifted. I did.
Me too. Unfortunately, though, because I didn't. It wasn't that great. But it was all like, this is all the X-Men's fault. Or
Yeah.
Yeah.
My loyalty to the X-Men kept me watching.
Right. It's like, is one of them going to pop up? Is Magneto going to show his face because, Polaris is so, oh, my father.
Yeah.
Or who's my father? It was a weird show. But, yeah, man. Those are two shows. Was there any other X-Men shows? No, I think that was it.
Not worth mentioning.
That was it. For sure. Besides the cartoon. Cartoon was awesome.
Of course. Live action, they definitely made a lot of attempts.
Yeah.
But the temporal aura comes in handy a little later when they're referring to when Mobius, and we definitely will get into it, is trying to track these items, and he's saying, hey, maybe test this for the temporal aura, like the gum. So there's something where this temporal aura is going to be something they're going to use to be able to trace the different people in different realities. So keep in touch with that.
Or different variants, I guess.
Different variants. Yeah. So they enter this DMV rating room area. You asked to take a ticket, which is just silly because there's only 2 people in there. There's a poster on the wall that says, Miss Minutes, behave, or we'll clean your clock. It says, behave or we'll clean your clock. A lot of these references to time.
Yeah.
But Miss Minutes is a little avatar, voiced by Tara Strong. Tara Strong is, I don't know if anybody out there, aside from my girl Freddie from different world, who does more voices in the cartoon world than Tara Strong. She's Harley Quinn, the original Harley Quinn, Teen Titans, all of Nickelodeon. She is a beast. So she's Miss Minutes. And she pretty much lays out this little story. This is what we'll get into.
Okay.
Is the explanation that they give for this time situation, the TVA. Now, I have my theories, I have my thoughts about it.
Right.
But this is what they're giving us. They're telling us that reality started with in a multiverse type of situation.
Okay.
And these multiverses contradicted each other and they fought. It was a war. So this is how it started. And then the timekeepers, in their great wisdom and great power, they organized it and streamlined it into one timeline.
Right.
The sacred timeline.
Okay.
Right? In which things are just kept cohesively, and if anything steps out of variant, there's too many variants going on, we'll go back to that multiverse of madness. Well, actually, this is what she says. She says, whatever the reason was, stepping off of your path, the variants, created a nexus event, which, left unchecked, could branch off into madness, leading to another multiversal war. So we have the beginning of time with a multiverse. The timekeepers condensed it, streamlined into one.
Sacred timeline.
And now we're in a situation where if anything goes too crazy, we have to make sure Nexus events. We make sure WandaVision, we know about that. Then that's where the TVA steps in.
Right, so that it doesn't stream out into madness. Now we just said multiverse madness, multiverse of madness.
What do you think of that explanation?
It's their explanation that they give to people, just like any authority figure gives a, a kind of whitewashed version, or it could be true, could not be true. But if it started out into multiverses, then it couldn't. I don't think that having multiverses could be all that bad.
Right.
Maybe, some power decided that it was bad for them, or that, in order to have more control, they had to condense things. I don't know.
The TVA will be questioned more and more as we go on. I haven't seen more than this episode, but I could see very clearly that their intentions are going to be questioned. I hope soon, because they're way too powerful.
I mean, I think that anytime you watch one of these Marvel shows or movies, or most movies, right? There's always, not always, but if there's a theme of there being a higher power that controls things, you have to, for the most part, assume that something's wrong with that, because the freedom to be of free mind and do what you want is always going to be prevalent in an artist telling of a story.
Right.
And any bureaucracy, you must follow this path is usually seen as evil in the long run.
It's very true. And speaking of evil, even in this propaganda video, when they represented variants, and a variant is anybody who steps outside of the current timeline, the sacred timeline,
right.
They were automatically, if you see the cartoon, they made them evil immediately. And that bothered me. Because I'm like, that not everybody is evil who happens to step out their timeline.
Well, yeah, what if I slipped and fell on an infinity gem and I just, that didn't make me evil. I didn't do it on purpose. It's a variant.
Look how many cosmic, quantum realms you can jump into by accident, you know? So that made me a little bit more suspicious of them, because that gives me the impression that they want to control what timeline you're in. I think the sacred timeline, I think it's a myth. I don't think there is a sacred timeline.
Yeah. That's interesting that you just said quantum, and it makes me think, like, when something happened, like Ant-Man and the Wasp, right? Is that considered, is the quantum realm within the in the multiverse, or is that separate? The only reason I ask is because we know that Kang is going to show up in Ant-Man and the Wasp, right? And
Quantumania.
Right, Quantumania. So is that separate, or is that a name that is misunderstood or misinterpreted that is also still part of the multiverse?
I always saw the quantum realm as a highway. I never even saw it as a route to get somewhere. Maybe I'm wrong. And I hope we'll learn more.
So is it you feel like maybe it's like a pocket dimension with many doors to get many places?
That's how I felt they were treating it.
Yeah.
Because the TVA, they're definitely in a pocket dimension. They're outside of time and space in their own little, in their own realm.
Interesting stuff, guys.
So it is very interesting how we're going to see how that progresses. And even we were mentioning in our little news clip how WandaVision isn't continuing.
Right.
Michael Waldron is the screenwriter for Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, and he's also in charge of Loki. He's the head writer for Loki.
Nice.
So the same dude with the pen who's writing Loki has his pen all in Doctor Strange 2 with Scarlet Witch and the Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah.
So that makes me excited for Loki, even more so because we're able to see that cohesiveness.
Yeah, absolutely. That it's going to pull into the movies that we're going to see in the next year or two, and cross-reference each other a lot. And maybe we'll even see some of the characters by the time this show ends. Yeah. Maybe we'll see a character that's supposed to be in Multiverse of Madness, maybe. Or some of these characters may carry over into the Multiverse of Madness. And even again, we talk about time. So anytime you think about time, knowing that Kang the Conqueror is coming, it makes me think of that movie Ant-Man and the Wasp, and how he may even be in this show. You know what I'm saying? At some point we may see him. I mean, look, when we talk about what are the guys called? The three heads of the timekeepers, right? The one in the middle, he looks like Kang to me.
He looks black. He has Negro features.
Right. And on the when you go to the whatever it's called, where after he showed his ticket, right, and they talked to Loki, that face that looked like Jonathan Majors. But also when you see the cartoon of the timekeepers, the one in the middle, it looked like Kang because he had a blue face, got the little gem, like it looks like it. Even if it's not him, it's of his race or his lineage, his peoples. Yeah.
We're gonna find out. And we're gonna get back to that Kang reference when we refer to his love interest, who's coming up. But they dip to France, and this is where we introduce Mobius. So I'm gonna blow your mind really quick. Mobius is very important. His name, Mobius Mobius, he's in the comics.
Right.
But Mobius has a special place in the MCU. Think back to Avengers Endgame.
Not to be confused with Morbius.
Not to be confused with Morbius. And I was saying Morbius, and I had to read back and say Mobius.
Right.
Because remember the last Endgame, right?
Yeah.
Tony Stark is washing dishes. This is so subtle. I don't think 90% of the people caught this. Tony Stark is washing dishes, and at one point he looks at a picture of himself and Peter Parker, and he stops and he winces a bit, and his attitude changes. And the reason why is he looks at that picture, and that picture is him, Tony, and Peter doing a fake plaque. Remember they had to create a fake story to get Peter Parker to go to Civil War, so they created this fake grant for Aunt May.
Got it.
Streams back to this. So they took this picture, and Peter Parker's holding the picture upside down because they're so goofy. They put this fake plaque together, but he's holding it upside down. Tony Stark looks at that picture, gets inspiration, and goes to work. Now, what he did downstairs was he created a Mobius inverted loop, and he got that from the picture being upside down.
Right.
So that's something where he got that inspiration and created this mechanism that allowed time travel to actually happen.
Right.
So that was a very interesting Easter egg that they put in there.
Yeah, it's definitely cool that they cracked the the code of time travel with something that making this inverted Mobius, whatever you called it, right? And then one of the main characters in this show name is Mobius. So that's all interesting.
So it's something where, and Tony Stark definitely said in Endgame, when you mess with time, it tends to mess back. So a lot of these things are tied together.
Yeah, and basically the story that they're telling is almost the same story that the woman, what's her name, from the first Doctor Strange, that she tells to Bruce Banner about the timeline.
Oh, the ancient one.
The ancient one, right. It's the same thing where, we're talking about variants and how that can be bad, and you have to put the stones back, right? So it seems like she got her knowledge of how things are supposed to work from the same place as, the TVA, you know what I mean?
That's true. And she explained that. And even deeper than that, there was a deleted scene from Avengers Endgame where the Ancient One refers to the branches and says you have to clip the branches. Remember at the end when Captain America says, "I'm gonna clip the branches." He was actually responding to that deleted scene. Because he said clip the branches, but there was no other reference to it.
Yeah.
So they know they kind of have that contingency going. So we're in France now. Mobius is here. Owen Wilson. You know, everybody knows Owen Wilson, Wedding Crashers.
Who has a toy already?
Does he?
Yeah, I seen the toy. It's pretty cool.
He's getting it. So the Minutemen are responding. They were saying they're responding to a routine Nexus event, and pretty much they were attacked by this variant, by this variant, and they're using knives. So we know that Loki uses knives, and they're saying this is the 6th attack this week. So this is something where whoever's wrecking these Minutemen are really attacking them, and they're really getting scared.
Yeah.
So they see a kid in the distance. They interrogate this kid. You see this nice stained glass with the devil.
Yeah.
With this blue tongue. And the blue tongue to me I saw Loki and I saw that frost giant heritage. That's what I saw when I saw that blue tongue. The kid had a blue tongue because the kid was chewing this gum.
Blue gum, right?
And this gum was given to him by this variant. So they're going to use that temporal aura to kind of see, if they can kind of track this variant.
Got it.
So it's called Kablooey bubble, blueberry gum. We don't know if we're going to see this again, but it seems to have some sort of meaning. But essentially, they're given a file because we now know that our Loki, has been found. So that those files were given to Mobius. We found him, and on this file we see his stats, and we can see that his sex is gender fluid, which confirms that we have female Lokis. We have a lady Loki in this world.
Right.
I think we're going to see her sooner than later. But that fluid is cool because now we know Loki he switches it up in different realities.
Yeah, and in the comic book, there's young Loki, there's kid Loki, there's there's female Loki who comes after, I think, like Ragnarok or something like that. He switches into this female version of himself for a while. And
is there a black Loki?
It's a lot of Lokis, man.
Blackie?
Ooh.
So Loki's at the judge now, right? And the judge is who else but Ravonna Renslayer, which is the love interest for Kang, played by Gugu Mbatha Raw, who's so beautiful. Her other name is Terminatrix is actually her comic book name. Terminatrix. I don't know if we're ever going to see that, but we'll see. But pretty much she's the judge. And we were mentioning Kang. The Kang image is behind her, literally.
I mean, there's an image behind her of the 3 timekeepers, right? And it looks Kangish. It definitely looks Kangish and Jonathan Lee Majors-ish at the same time, right? So
Jonathan Majors-ish. So pretty much, how do you plead? Like a regular court situation. Loki's like a god doesn't plead. But basically, Loki's saying, listen, y'all got issues. Go to the Avengers. I wouldn't even have had the Tesseract if it wasn't for the Avengers.
Yeah.
So if you want to go policing time crimes, holla at them.
Yeah. And
she pretty much says they did what they were supposed to do. That was supposed to happen.
Right.
Which was interesting to me. Because they definitely, I don't know if it's supposed to happen. It seems like they're picking and choosing
it's like, shit, don't worry about that.
Yeah.
Mind your business.
It's definitely, and if you want to take it there, Steve Rogers did not do what he was supposed to do. Steve Rogers stayed in a time he wasn't supposed to be at. The TVA should, theoretically, have showed up at Peggy's house like, yo.
Yeah.
So we don't know exactly what their motivation is. We'll see. But pretty much, Loki's questioning the timekeepers, and he kind of makes you as an audience member go, all right, so where are the timekeepers?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because she doesn't seem to have an answer.
Yeah.
Her answers are pretty much, we're here to do what they say.
Yeah.
And we're here to uphold what they say.
Yeah.
They're busy,
Yeah.
So
the man behind the curtain, the eyes, or, whatever it is, we don't see him. We don't see them. Don't worry about that. We just do what they say.
And I got the side eye on them anyway. So that kind of made that a little clearer. So Loki tries to use his magic. He can't use it. He's sentenced to be reset. And he's pretty much kind of going off. But Agent Mobius is there, and he saves his ass. He says, you know what? I'll take him. I'll be responsible for whatever he does.
Yeah.
Because we have some issues, I can use him for a case.
Right.
So
and the rest of the TVA, they're not too keen on that, but they're like, listen, whatever happens, it's on you. He's like, yeah, I got it. Don't worry about it.
Pretty much. He takes him around the TVA, and this is kind of where you see Loki seeing that something is bigger than him.
Mm-hmm.
He's not used to this. As you can see, he's not used to this. So the TVA is something that really perplexes him and kind of has him as, he's like, there's no magic here? He doesn't even understand how this is even possible without magic. So Mobius is kind of taking him in. They mentioned Nightmare Realm, which is interesting. We'll maybe get back to that later.
Loki's like, this is a nightmare, right? And then Mobius is like, that's a different department. I'll help you destroy that one if you want. But it's pretty funny, but also interesting because we're in the multiverse, and the original script, the Multiverse of Madness, I believe the main villain was supposed to be Nightmare. I don't know if he's still going to show up later, but we'll see.
I don't think they have plans for him for right now, but we'll see. He takes him to a screening room, which is very important because he's going to start showing pretty much scenes to show Loki what's going on. He's drinking this Josta energy drink. Now, if you don't know, Josta was the first energy drink mass-produced in the States.
Really?
It was produced by Pepsi.
Oh, wow.
In the early 90s. So what that tells us as an audience is that the TVA, they can have anything they want.
Yeah.
That's basically what they're saying. If they have a favorite, you don't watch Rick and Morty, but Rick and Morty Szechuan sauce. When my man was going through multiverses just to get the Szechuan sauce that McDonald's had in the 90s, just to show off their power. So that's something very interesting. But he questions him. What do you want? You can tell Mobius wants to get a little deeper into Loki's mindset.
Right.
And he starts showing him his greatest hits, pretty much.
Yep.
We start with the Avengers, the end of Avengers, which if you think about it, Loki just experienced this like a day, like hours prior.
Yeah. It just happened.
It just happened to him. So we go the end of the Avengers, how they kind of have him cornered, the death of Phil Coulson.
Which created the Avengers.
Which literally created the Avengers.
Right.
And he pretty much asked him, do you enjoy hurting people? Is that something that you want to do? Because he kind of want to get a little deeper into Loki's mind. And then he goes, let's talk about your escapes. And he rolls the tape. And he pretty much goes into a series of events that we don't know is related to Loki. The D.B. Cooper story is the first one that they go into.
Right. Now,
D.B. Cooper, this happened in 1971.
Yes, actually happened.
November in real life.
Yeah.
Where this gentleman hijacked a plane, a Boeing 727, pretty much with the threat of a bomb that was strapped to him. And he was given $200K.
Yeah.
Now, what the end of the story is the mystery, because he was told to have evacuated the plane with a parachute, and they only found a certain amount of money in the river.
Yeah. So he was never seen again. So they don't know if he got away with it or if he died or whatever in real life.
Real life.
Yeah.
So obviously we have this parallel. We now see that it was Loki that was doing this all the time. White men. Hey, he was a white dude. But the cool part, I love the part where he hollers at Heimdall, who can see anything and can teleport him, and he pretty much zaps him from the Rainbow Bridge out of thin air, and you see the dollars in the air, and that explains this moment in history, which is pretty cool.
And they talk about why'd you do that, and he's like, Thor bet me, so I did it.
Reckless gods, just reckless.
Yeah. Thor was pretty reckless when he was young.
And that's very, very true to his character. He was definitely not as mature as he was.
Also, the year was
71.
71, right? I mean, Thor was already like 1,000 by 1971. Was he? It's just really interesting that all that time he was, just very reckless right up until the first Thor movie where he
100%.
That's where and now he's still not the most serious god in the world, but
he came a long way.
He came a long way in a very short amount of time.
Yeah. He had a lot of things happen to him.
Yeah.
I mean, his character arc is among the better ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we hear about that. Loki is really going off that he's in control of his own destiny, That rant was very important because they're looking at him like you're not in control of anything,
Mm-hmm.
and he's learning more and more that he has a lot less control.
Yeah.
This glorious purpose is just kind of getting less and more deflated, you know. So Mobius shows Loki's future after the Avengers movie. Now, this is what Loki does not know.
Right. None of this happened to this variant of Loki. This variant of Loki ended at the end, basically at the end of the first Avengers movie, when after the Hulk does the bang bang bang,
Right.
and then they put him in cuffs, they cover his mouth, and then obviously then we see what happens when the briefcase falls and the Tesseract comes out in Endgame,
Right.
and then he steals the Tesseract, and now we're back to a Loki that hasn't had the character growth that
Right.
we've seen throughout all of these movies.
Right.
So,
If you think of it, just think of it as 2012 Loki.
yeah.
We saw Thor 2. He didn't. He's probably lucky for that because that was garbage. But Thor Ragnarok, he didn't. He
Right.
didn't know any of that.
But
So
in this room, he starts to relive all of those things.
he's seeing it.
Yeah.
He's seeing it. So he's able to see that he's responsible for his mother's death.
Yeah.
He actually sent the Dark Elves one way, where they should have sent him another way, where his mom was. And he's actually seeing that, wow, not only did I F up, but I actually was responsible for the death of my mother.
Yeah.
And he doesn't believe it at first, but shout out to Tom Hiddleston, who acted his ass off. You
Yeah,
can
in
really
this very
see
short
him
scene, yeah.
really kind of capture that moment. So that's important. He's been broken down. So at this point, he pickpockets the time twister from Mobius.
Mm-hmm.
And bro, if you don't go back and slow it down,
Yeah.
you won't see it.
Mm-hmm.
He pickpockets it so fast. It's not like in a regular show where they show the pickpocket
Yeah.
and it looks dumb because you're like, why didn't you see that? He's like all on him. He did it so fast, I had to really stop it, and kudos to them because they really did it in real time. So he steals the time twister, and pretty much.
But before we even get there, right?
Please.
Within that, him seeing all these things and his mother's death and all that, he also gets to see himself die.
Yes, we get there.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
No, it's all good. It's all good because it kind of chops up a little bit.
Gotcha.
But he does see himself die. But he sees himself die after he goes to try to threaten Casey with the Tesseract.
Got it.
So he takes the time twister, bounces, finds nerdy Casey, who has the pocket protector, threatens him like, I'm gonna kill you, yo, give me the Tesseract. Casey's like, what, you mean this? And opens this drawer,
Right.
and we proceed to see one of the most jarring moments of any MCU fan who's been watching these movies for the last decade.
Nuts.
These things are now just cheap stones in a damn drawer.
Yeah, man. They're like, paperweights.
We all have that drawer in our house.
Yeah.
Or our mama's house. That's just a bunch of nothing.
Yeah.
That's what this drawer was. So that was, that's Marvel's way of saying, we're done with Infinity Stones. At least for now, we moved on.
Yeah.
And it's a good way for the storyline to say, listen, the TVA doesn't give a damn about your Infinity Stones.
Yeah. And within this realm, right? Do they hold any power? Is there no power to them at all? Or is it just like where they are is so powerful that even using it is just like it's pointless. It won't.
It looks like it's just powerless.
Yeah.
Because he can't use his magic. We can kind of assume that these things are literally they're claiming they're paperweights, dude.
Yeah.
Like, you can't get clearer than that.
It's really odd, right? Because you think of these things as like cosmic, like the things that created the
Big
universe.
Bang, yeah.
And then here you pull out a drawer and there's like 50 of them, and it's like, oh yeah, we don't really care about this.
We know Marvel's very good at subverting expectations and taking something you thought was so important, the shield, anything you thought was really important, Thor's hammer, and break it.
Yeah.
Just so just to come back down,
Right.
and let them know that they're in charge. They're telling the story.
Yeah.
We're the boss. So no, that was definitely cool. So after that moment, he really at that moment, Blitz, he literally realized he's holding the Tesseract in his hand.
Yeah.
And he realizes this ain't nothing.
Yeah. I spend all this time trying to get this and use this to make myself into a leader and a god, and it's like now it's like
Glorious Purpose. The name of this episode is Glorious Purpose, and that's what Loki was saying every time you see him.
Yeah,
I'm burdened with glorious purpose.
Yeah.
And throughout this episode, we see him being stripped down to this purpose is less and less glorious.
Right.
Less and less glorious. And he still has a ways to go. So the TVA is looking for him. Well, he says out loud, is this the greatest power in the universe? Referring to the TVA.
Mm-hmm.
So he's literally like, Loki likes power.
Yeah.
So he's literally like about to genuflect at this point. But the TVA is looking for him. He ports back into Morpheus' office. Morbius' office, where he...
Wait, not Morpheus.
I'm sorry, Morbius.
Not Morbius. Mobius.
Mobius. I'm saying a lot of words at once. This is where he sees his own death.
Uh-huh.
He comes back after he has that little humbling moment with the Infinity Stones.
Uh-huh.
He comes back and then he rewinds the tape, see his mom die again.
Yeah.
And then he goes to the Infinity War section
Uh-huh.
and sees the whole thing.
Yeah.
Imagine watching yourself die violently.
Right.
And literally he says to Thanos, you will never be a god.
Right.
And the way they framed it, old Loki saying that, and new Loki's looking at him saying it. So it looks like he's talking to himself.
He's looking at himself.
It's so sick how they framed it. He said, you will never be a god, and he kind of brings him down. So once he sees himself die, the tape pretty much ends.
He sees his father die.
My bad. He sees his father die.
Yeah, and tell him that he loves him, or that, so...
I almost forgot about that.
That he would never have seen... It's just very interesting how much emotion he had to go through within this very short frame of time in learning all of these things that happen in the sacred timeline, which you would assume is like the real timeline. So what he does with all this information in that just just so quickly happening in his head is going to be interesting to see within the series.
Yeah, the growth that he has in 2 minutes is crazy.
Yeah.
Which is why you got to give it up to him as an actor. But his father recognized him as his son. That goes back to the first time we saw Loki. So that full circle moment happened, and he saw his father acknowledge his new self as his son.
Yeah.
So he's experiencing all these things, in real time.
Right.
So that's a dope little sobering moment. So he has that moment. He sees his father pass. He sees all these moments happen. The film ends, and it says, file ended. Loki 616. We saw that tape.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty much him and B15, my girl, she comes through. Hunter B15, she comes through, and they have a fight.
Mm-hmm.
And he pretty much has her in this little loop, this little time loop. So that's a little cute little fight they have. And he realizes that he can't run anymore. Yep. So after this little fun he has with her, he pretty much just sits down. Mobius comes through with the scepter, and he's like, "Yo, what am I doing here? Can I leave? I can't leave." I think Loki's really been broken down, bit by bit, and at this point he realized he can't really go anywhere, and he admits that he doesn't enjoy killing.
Mm-hmm.
Killing is a part of his character. People make me mad. Martin, like he's somebody who's kind of he's cursed by who he is.
Right. He's the god of mischief, and part of that, comes with this facade of, the wickedness, the evilness or whatever, and that's not the enjoyable part of being the god of mischief to him. Right.
He's seeing the illusion is the strength.
Yeah.
So that's a very interesting character moment to see, because we believe that he's telling the truth. I don't believe that he's lying to try to get by. We believe that he kind of learned these things in this episode.
Yeah.
So Mobius makes an offer. I got a case. I'm hunting some variants, and I can use your help.
Yeah. It seems like this whole episode of him, running around and seeing these things, whether you assume that they let this happen or play out this way, because obviously the TVA is very powerful, and maybe, they knew that it was going to happen this way all along, right? But I think it was to almost test him to see if this variant was worthy of helping them, if his temporal aura was good enough to go on this task, if he had humanity within him, and he wasn't just the god of mischief. So
Yeah, and you can tell by the questions that Mobius was asking him is that that's exactly what he wanted to get to the bottom of.
Yeah.
Can I trust you to even help us with this?
Yeah.
So after he reveals to Loki that these variants that they're looking for, it's Loki, right? They zero in. We switch scenes now, and this is the final scene of the actual show, the episode, and this is in Oklahoma, Salina, Oklahoma, 1858.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have these Minutemen. They go down there. Seems to be routine. They're just kind of checking things out. You see this futuristic spear lodged into the ground,
Mm-hmm.
and then they realize that the ground is covered in oil. So they kind of deduct, hey, somebody's probably jumped back in time to get rich off of this oil.
Mm.
And one of the Minutemen says, hey, let's just clean this up. Too much paperwork to do all this, which is interesting because they're cutting corners out here.
Uh-huh.
Something very important is time. They're out here cutting corners. This is very, I don't trust them at all. But essentially, we see a cloaked figure in the distance, right as they're setting to reset the timeline. And we see this black figure drop a lantern on the ground, and we realize they're on oil because it's flammable and they've been consumed by fire.
Yeah.
And then we see this figure who we know is a variant Loki grab this lantern, this time lantern, and take it away. So we can deduct that this person's going through timeline after time, following them, killing them, and taking these lanterns
Right.
to be able to do something in the future.
Interesting.
And I believe this is Lady Loki. No spoilers.
I like
haven't
it.
Seen it.
I like it.
That's the episode, man.
That was a good episode, man. It definitely set up a lot in, just the amount of time that we had. What is it, 50 minutes? About 51 minutes? Yeah. It's going to be a good show, man. It's going to be a good show, and it's a great jumping off point for a lot more that's going to come.
What did you guys think of this episode? Please leave all of your thoughts, all of the Easter eggs. If we missed something, please let us know.
Yeah.
Did you know about the Mobius loop? The DB Cooper thing. I mean, there were so many things in this episode.
We saw that in the coming attractions, the trailers that they had dropped, and I honestly thought that it was going to be a bigger thing where, within the show, we have Loki taking on different things that happen within time, and it was kind of like an afterthought, like, oh yeah, that was just a bet that me and Thor had. It's really interesting that it was that quick of a thing.
I feel like they almost did it for the trailer.
Yeah. Just to fool us, right?
Mm-hmm. Or they may in the future go through some other timelines, and we may see Loki hit back some other historic events. So I guess we'll see, man.
Very, very quantum leapish.
We'll see, man. But I'm enjoying this. There's a lot to digest. I want to see Kang. I want to see a lot of things happen. I want to see some things being fleshed out. So I'm excited, man. Every Wednesday. Yeah.
I think it's going to be the perfect. I think a lot of people thought that it didn't have enough action, but I think it's a good balance of great storytelling, and then you get the action in there, because the movies, I think, are where you get that action, but I think the shows are to help you re-examine and delve deeper into the actual characters.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So you can't be mad when it's not like they're not spending millions of dollars on things exploding and special effects when you're getting this really good character development.
Yeah. And we'll get there. I have every faith we'll get there. This is the first episode, and for a show like this, I don't think they could have afforded to have a lot of action. You need to explain the hell out of this.
Yeah, a lot of unless you're like super nerds like us, you really have to like tell the story in a way where you're retelling a lot and allowing people to jump on board if they're not die hard. I watched every movie. And
even the nerds, we have to know what rules they're playing with. They're starting from scratch in many ways. Yeah. So yeah, man, if you're a novice, you're new to the comic books, you're not, tune in to ISO Boom as we break these down every single week, man.
Yes. We'll be back with another episode next week. We'll probably have another ISO Boom Time Bomb with news from around the nerdosphere, or what do we have any other words for the universe? You like that one?
We'll work on that.
Yeah, we'll work on it. But we'll be doing shorts telling you about things outside of the show, but our main focus show will be all about Loki. We'll be back. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment, tell your friends. Check out our merch. We have some new shirts. I So Boom merchandise coming. We'll have some hats, maybe some mugs, a beach blanket. I don't know. I just design the stuff and then I put it out there, and hopefully you guys enjoy it. This has been a excellent episode, starting off point of Loki. We are LR Blitzkrieg.
I'm the Marksman.
This has been
So Boom.